Chairman. Mr. McClellan, you said that President Bush came to Washington, you believe, with great potential, having worked with Democrats as he did in Austin as governor and in the beginning. What events or what people do you think led him astray from the potential that he had to be a uniter and not a divider?
Well, I think part of this was he came into this and was going to make an effort to an extent, but that he saw this as the way the Washington game is played and decided to play it just like it is played by many other people instead of trying to transform it like he pledged to do when he was running for president. I think part of that was based on his experience of seeing what happened to his father in his time in office.
So you think he had the potential to come in based on the experience he had in Texas, where he worked with the lieutenant governor and all the
right, and the speaker
there, and the system changed him. What was in Washington? Is that right?
I think that's part of it, yes.
And the vice president was put on the team because he had knowledge of the system and experience in Washington. Is that not correct?
And his foreign policy experience and, yes, experience in other ways.
Do you believe that Vice President Cheney was most responsible from deterring President Bush from being the great president and uniter that you think he could have been?
Well, I think the president has to bear responsibility for his presidency veering off track like it did more than anyone else, but there are certainly some influences on him that I think were negative influences in that regard, and I would include the vice president in that.
Who was the greater influence, the vice president or Karl Rove?
I don't know that I could make a specific judgment on that, but both of them had enormous influence in terms of the direction of this White House and the way this White House operated. Of course, with the vice president, it was more on certain foreign policy elements and economic policy issues, and with Karl Rove, it was the massive political operation that exists in this White House, that and existed in other White Houses as well, but when you transfer that over into the war-making process, it becomes a problem.
Did you ever hear of any decisions or people that used BlackBerries that were RNC BlackBerries or RNC emails for political purposes so as to not place those on?
Well, I certainly knew people used that had RNC emails. I didn't have an RNC email account myself, but I certainly knew that people used them. I believe that I probably would have sent emails to both of Karl Rove's accounts, his White House account, and probably that account as well, just to make sure it got to him.
Are you aware of any particular policy that said to use those to avoid government oversight?
Not directly, no direct knowledge.
How about indirectly?
No, I wouldn't say indirectly either.
Have you heard, you say you heard talk about Iraq and the buildup for war there. Did you ever hear any talk about Iran and a buildup for war with Iran in the White House?
Well, there's certainly a focus on Iran, and I sat in world leader meetings with the president where he would discuss Iran. It was a high foreign policy priority for him and remains a high foreign policy priority as well. And I think the views of people within the administration are pretty well known in terms of what we ought to be doing to confront Iran.
The president didn't attend and hasn't attended funerals of soldiers who were killed in the war. Were you privy to any of the discussions of why it was determined that he would not attend those funerals as previous presidents generally
including
did?
Discussions from him personally that he didn't want to view it as picking or choosing one funeral over another. I did attend often with him when he would visit families of the fallen and wounded soldiers as well. Those were certainly very moving moments, and I saw the president's care and concern for those troops and for those families as well.
Previous presidents attended funerals, did they not?
I believe so, yes.
They didn't worry about choosing one over another. They tried to make as many as possible. So there was a decision to make none because you can make them all. Is that correct?
Well, I think part of it was where do you draw the line, and if you do one, then you can't do the other. You're not doing the others. Does that show disrespect to others? But the president, as I said, often visits with the troops, the wounded, and visits with the families as well. And that's the way he decided to approach it.
Do you remember when he gave up golf?
No, I don't. I saw his comments about that, but I don't remember any discussion personally about this is a time to give up golf.
Yeah. During the campaign of 2004, were you familiar with any discussion about swift boating, Senator Kerry?
No, I was not involved in that. That was more of a campaign side of things, if anything, and I wanted to have been involved in that.
Did you ever overhear any conversations about firing U.S. attorneys at all?
That was something that boiled up after I was there, so I don't. It was never something that was high on my plate in terms of press issues I was dealing with, so it's not something I ever focused on.
Several people edited your book. It's been elicited that different people edited it. What did they edit out of the book that we should know about?
I don't think there's anything that would be of interest to this committee that was, if you say edited out of the book. I think I've given a pretty clear view of the big picture things in this book is that was what I was trying to focus on, is how did this administration go so badly off course, and what can we learn from it.
You said in an interview by Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! That you mentioned the number of civilian casualties in Iraq as one of several issues you should have spoken up on while you were at the White House. One of several you should have spoken up on. What were the other issues you should have spoken up on?
Well, I mean, in retrospect, there are a number of times I think I should have spoken up more, but as I say in the book, too, in this administration, once the policy is decided, the president expects everyone to march in lockstep to that policy, not question it. You can question how it's being implemented, but once that decision's made, you're not encouraged to speak up about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. McClellan.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Tom Feeney of Florida.